ᴤ of the hip. This new zigzag schematic. Hit. Beloved. Get it, baby, get it. Click.
Yeah, here he is again, that's me. And there's you. And that big all you cats out there whipping and wailing and jumping up and down and sucking up that fine juice and patting each other on the back and telling each other who the greatest cat in the world is. Mr. Malenkov, Mr. Dalenkov, Mr. Eisenhorn, Woozle, Weason, Meisen, Woozer, and Mr. Woodhill, and Mr. Beechhill, and Mr. Churchill, and all them hills, they gonna get it straight. If they can't straighten it, they know a cat that knows a cat is gonna get it straight. Well, I'm gonna put that on me. Was the sweetest, warmest, wailingest cat that ever stomped on his sweet, swing step. And they called this your cat the Naz. That was the cat's name. He was a carpenter. Now the Naz was a kind of cat that could be so wild, and so sweet, and so strong, and so witty, that when he laid it, it's still. That's what I was telling you to see when he put him down. There's a man over that cat throat. Get the cat throat, man. Get out the way. Let me get some man don't bug me. Get off my back. I'm trying to be what the cat seeing things to do. They're pushing him. Because they want to dig his dick. You see, dig his mouth for him. So the man say, wait a minute, babies. Tell you what I'm gonna do. I ain't gonna take you for 680 cats. I'm gonna take 12 studs and 81 save that. What do we do? Lazarus was running from school along down the boulevard one day, and they run into a little cat with a bent frame. So the Naz look at this little cat with a bent frame and he say, what's the matter with you, babe? And the little cat with a bent frame, he say, well, my frame is bent, Naz. It's been bent from in front. So the Naz look at the little cat with the bent frame and he put the golden eyes of love on this little kitty and he looked right down into the windows of his soul and he said to the little cat, he said, straight! Cat got straight in the now, and everybody jumping up and down and say, what in the ass put on that boy? You dug him before, dig him now. Yes, I can beat it. Now you see the Naz are coming on so strong and so fine and so great. Talking about when's he gonna appear next? What did he do there? He put it down once with the cat dug it, didn't dig it. Put it down twice, dug it, didn't dig it. Put it down the third time, the cat dug it. Bam! Walked away with his eyes fucking out here, what did they do? Naz coming on so fine and so strong. They put it on the certificate, they want him to sign out there. They want him to do this gig here, they want him to do that gig there. They want him making the radio and the video and all that jazz. He can't make all that jazz. Like I explained, the cat's complicated, he's got his own name. When he knows he should show, blow and cannot go. That's so sweet. He sends for these cats to the state. So then they know the same thing one day. And the Naz couldn't make it, so he put it on through these cats. Of course, we're staying that way to get over there. Plus, if they help with my Naz, we got it covered. So on the way over, the boys run into a little honey sand through the road. And it gets right in the middle of the road. Blam! Thunder, storm, lightning, flashing, and thunder, roaring, and the boat going up and down, and the boat cats thinking every minute gonna be the last, and one cat looked up, and there comes the Naz. Who has anyone you ever seen right across the water, walking? Naz is a little boy and boy before the game of Judah and boy said, hey Naz, can I make it out there with you? Naz say, make it, Jude. And old Jude went stomping off that boat with about 4 steps, dropped his whole collar and Naz had to stash him back. So the Naz look at these kiddies and they say, what's the matter with you babies now? I said, what's going on here, boys? I said, what's taking place? I said, what's all this fuss about here? What's going on? Man, so what's going on? He said, can't you see the storm, the lightning flashing and the thunder rolling? And I say, I told you stay cool, didn't I, babies? Now the pavement of Naz is jumping. Great bodies, spots 40 feet long. They're talking about what he said. I stood up to all these big bad cats and dug all that bad jazz and put him all down. And what he said he's gonna do and where it's gonna be and how it's gonna be, till the great bodies jump so bad. There is now 16,000 of these studs and kiddies in the Naz's little hometown where they live, looking to get straight. The Naz know he can't straighten them all. There's too small a place to want to hang everybody up. Nobody can make it. So the Naz look out at these 16,000 studs and kiddies and they say to them, come on, babies. Let's get on out down the road. There went the Naz, swinging away ahead of all these studs and kiddies and 16,000, stomping up a big swinging beat behind him. And our great necklace of love is supercharging and charging to him. Oh, it's brother to brother and sister to sister. And then Naz is stomping on the sweet swinging beat, going down the road. Naz talking about hopping the flowers, hopping the hours, hopping me, hopping you, hopping he, hopping she. Naz had them pretty eyes. He wanted everybody to see through his eyes so they could see how pretty it was. And they're having such a wailing, gorgeous, Mardi Gras time that before you know it, it was awesome time. And these polecats at 42 miles out of town, ain't nobody got the place biscuit. Well, the Naz look at these cats and they say they give them sand out there. The Naz say, you hungry, ain't you, baby? Say, yeah, Naz. He's digging you so hard what you putting down that you didn't beat that, Naz. He goofed. Guess that's what you call it. So the Naz say, well, gots to take it easier. We wouldn't want to go ahead and hold up something we might not like, would we? They say, no, Naz. Put it down and we'll pick it up. Naz stepped back a few paces and it say, all great swinging flowers of the fields. They said, oh, great non-stop singing the song of beauty. Naz say, stamp upon the terror. And they hit it. And then Naz say, straighten your miracle body. The body went up. And he said, straighten your arms. The arms went up. And he said, higher. And the arms went higher. And then Naz said, dig it, fella. They dug it. And when they did, bang! On the way to, and he looked in the left hand, was a great big sweet stuffed smoked fish. And in the other, big thick loaf that gone crazy on it face and non-stop sweet swinging sun. Now these polecats flipped. Naz never did nothing simple. And he laid it. Then when the saints marching in, when the saints go marching in, hallelujah! I'm once deep in that number, the saints go marching. Say when the saints marching in, when the saints go marching, hallelujah! I wants to be in that number. Saints go marching, how about you, teacher?
From out of the stars, a beacon of light beckons humanity forward, bringing a message of scientific understanding, creative expression, and exemplifying love in action.
Greetings again from Jamuary. This officially opens lesson number 2. There are lots of people in the world today who know the existence of many things but are unable to describe them. factually and in a way in which people can understand them. That is the purpose of the narrative, which culminated as an outgrowth of the tension between fundamentalism and science, and build up from that time. This condition was further aggravated by an Austrian monk, known Mendel. This holy and pious man, in going about his gardens, and we cannot call these scientists devils because they were very religious in their nature. Darwin led his family in morning prayer every night. Mendel found that in the plants and flowers of his garden that certain things happened. So genetics, compounded with Darwin's evolution, became something in which man learned to understand the creative processes which was going on around him. Previous to this time, there was a great deal of confusion. People believed in spontaneous regeneration, or in other various vagaries which had no scientific or factual explanation. So Darwin and Mendel did contribute much to the understanding and learning, did much to advance the thinking of mankind. And yet these principles in themselves were incomplete. Darwin did not know that in the animal and vegetable kingdoms there is a definite cycle of reincarnation, or metempsychosis, whatever you wish to call it, just as it is in humans. The spiritual dimensions in which flowers, plants, trees, and animals progress back and forth and in their cycles are just as important to these plants and animals as they are to humans. And so, that is how we can learn to understand and to bring into our concept something beyond the veil of materialism. Now it begins to be very obvious to people at this time, or it should be if I have made my points clear, that there are some very definite elements which are lacking in the present day stage of development and evolution of mankind. To further verify this situation, we might go into it from the standpoint of statistics as they exist among the hospitals, the asylums, and the penitentiaries of this great land of ours. We are all being reminded daily that 1 out of 4 persons will eventually die from cancer. What is cancer? When the scientist begins to know and understand that every atom in the human body, like every other atom in the terrestrial dimension, is supported and continually supplied internally with energy from a spiritual dimension, then he will find the key to solving and unlocking what causes cancer. It is in, shall I say, the malformations, in the transposition of the harmonic frequency relationships of the atomic structure of the higher realms and dimensions, which give rise to the condition known as cancer. The little atoms that compose the various cells, as they become disunified and lose their directed internal guidance and force and intelligence, speed up, become wild and erratic. They are now destructive potentials instead of constructive. The atom itself is still a mystery to science in spite of the fact that he has succeeded in creating either fissionable or thermonuclear weapons. It is still a mystery to the scientist. And he will never know of the innermost secret of what the atom really is until he becomes sufficiently clairvoyant to pierce beyond the veil of mortality. He will never know what the cause of cancer is. He will never know what the cause is of any other of these so-called incurable diseases, which are literally taking the lives of hundreds of thousands of people in our own fair land every year, people who die needlessly. Anyone who wishes to go into the hospitals and the asylums will see the truth of this statement. There are quite often, and there is a series of television programs going on right now which is called Medical Horizons. To any of you who have followed them, you will have at least seen partially some facet and some element of what medical science, psychiatric science, is going through at the present time. Oh, it is true, they have made wonderful and beautiful advances. So when we remember that psychiatry and medicine has practically been in existence in its modern form for a comparatively short time. But there is much to be done. And this much will be done from the spiritual side of life. At the present time, science, whether it is medicine or psychiatry, has passed the point of diminishing returns in the various ways and means in which he has created laboratories, scientific apparatus, and various other means of discerning conditions in the human body. You must remember also that it was about 50 years ago that people who suffered from various mental aberrations, and were known as crazy people, were locked in cages like animals. They were kept in freezing weather, they were chained, they were beaten, they were left half naked and starving because they weren't human anymore. Well, we've gone a little farther than that now. We take them inside where it's warm and we feed them and keep them clothed. But we still treat them like they're insane. When we get down to the basic causes of insanity and what causes these conditions, the scientist or the psychiatrist, if we call him thus, will have to go back to the New Testament. He will have to begin where Jesus left off. We're all familiar with the story, and if we can believe any part of the Bible at all, or the mission of Jesus, either that or we are forced to throw it out of the window. We all know of the story when Jesus approached the crazy man in the cemetery, as he was called, a man obsessed with demons. And so the demons cried and screamed, "Where shall we go if you cast us out of him?" And so Jesus told them, "Enter then into this herd of swine." And they did that, and the swine were obsessed and ran down and cast themselves into the sea. Evidently, the modern psychiatrist has gone past the point where he should take the word of an advanced master like Jesus. He refuses to recognize the spiritual elements of man's transposition in the terrestrial dimensions. He refuses to recognize, just as the atoms in the body are spiritual and are purely energy in all their form and circumstance, so is the dominion of the psychic self, purely spiritual. The most objective thing which you see around you and which you call solid form or substance is in itself merely an abstract supposition and nothing else. You, just as the walls of this building and every other terrestrial substance which you see about you is nothing more or less than a pulsating mass of energy which is called atoms. Transpose these atoms into any other form, and we have energy moving dynamically. Atomic energy is static. That is why you think it is solid. It is solid only because you are in comparison solid to it. If you could raise the vibration of the atoms in your body to a little different frequency in which it was normally accustomed to existing in this world, you could do just as Jesus did. You walk on the water and walk through the walls of this building, or through the walls of a tomb, for that matter. The flying saucer men to this day are doing that very thing. They come from other worlds, and they fly in ships in which they have succeeded in changing the basic frequency of the atomic structures of metal, so that they can span these vast distances which our science calls space, and which is not space at all, but is filled with this radiant, pulsating energy which is God himself. Next week, we will occupy the classroom upstairs. We will go into diagrams, and I will try to explain to you factually on the blackboard in understandable nomenclature with diagrams our first really constructive lesson in the realm of energy. I will try to explain what an atom is, how it comes into this terrestrial dimension, how it is supported. I will also explain to you what the sun is, how the worlds, the planetary systems exist. And I will try also to relate you to your inward self, to your God consciousness, which has been called the Christ itself. I'm going to give very strong emphasis on our relationship in the field of energy, because this will be the key. How much you assimilate of this wisdom which shall be given to you will depend primarily upon your success with the succeeding lessons, because they will all be based upon your ability to conceive energy. It is the basis for all of the missing elements and the missing links in our sciences and in our theologies. These will be, shall we say, fourth, fifth, or sixth dimensional concepts that will be given to you out of myself, but working in conjunction and in harmony with people who have not only lived on this planet at different times, but of others who have long since come and gone and reached the point where they need not return. I might quote to you such names as Newton, Planck, Einstein, Faraday, Volta, Lagrange, Copernicus, Galileo, Plato, and many others. And you may rest assured that they will all have their hand in their song. They will all have the power of the projection of their minds. There is something else that I will touch on this time, in which you may rest assured and is a definite promise. Not from myself, especially. I am participating in this promise naturally, but it is given by others too. But each and every one of you, even though you do or you do not assimilate the knowledge which is given to you in these succeeding lessons, that you may rest assured that even though your conscious or your objective mind does not function on that level or plane, do not be dismayed. You have a psychic self which dwells and which lives and which recreates you every hour of the day. And within this psychic self will be stored this wisdom and knowledge. It will be also made possible for you through these various transitions that a truer and a more cleaner contact will be made with the higher self. And that there will be changes in your life. They may be subtle or they may be strong, but there will be changes. For everyone who walks this path never returns, but goes on into higher and ever higher dimensions and concepts. And so, from the loved ones from the higher spiritual planes wish to convey to each and every one of you their own personal message, that you will be guided, guarded, and protected, and that they send you the fullest measure of their love and their understanding.
In your book, Truth About Mars, you mentioned the rolling of the rock away from the entrance. Since you were in the astral body in your flight, couldn't you have walked right through the wall or rock?
Well, I could have, but you see, Noel was very, very anxious that I learn everything possible about Mars. You see, the reason for those locks, they were airlocks actually, was to come and go on the surface of the planet, and without these danger of these mutants that they had running around loose, and various other things that might land on the planet from outer space. So if these openings were very cleverly concealed, well, then naturally there would be no less chance for an invasion into the city below, wouldn't there?
I mean, that you, in the astral state, could you have not passed through a solid? Wasn't it unnecessary to roll the rock away?
Oh yes, quite sure. I could have, as far as astral flight is concerned. In fact, to assure you, the very first contact I made, I was standing right on the street, right in the city.
Do these cities have many levels?
Well, those cities in themselves are actually, the one that I saw was basically constructed on the two levels. As far as the manufacturing areas are concerned and things of that nature, where perhaps other activities were concerned, I didn't go too deeply in them. We were primarily concerned at the time with giving people something, as there was a good deal of the flurry about the astronomical end of it at that time, with the conjunction in the orbit of Mars as its close proximity of 33 million miles with the Earth.
Could some of these advanced inventions and shortcuts of learning, etc., be brought to the Earthians?
That is not only a possibility, but is a definite fact, and I have already done so. Not only from Mars, but from other places too. It has already been done not only by myself, but other people too. In fact, you can attribute most of the scientific ages that exist today as teachings and, as we say, gifts, not from the laps of the gods, but from the minds of other men upon other planets. You look back and you'll see that 50 years ago was about the time the Wright brothers flew the first airplane, isn't that right? 1904, somewhere in that vicinity. And from there on up until our days of streptomycin and penicillin, we've had a lot of taking from the other places. And they have been primarily psychic revelations into the inner consciousness of scientists from other dimensions and other worlds. Well, in fact, many of the scientists themselves are reincarnations and have lived in these planets at different times, even though they may not consciously know it. Yeah?
How does the psychic body itself recreate?
You understand, in the physical process of the body, every minute in your body there are 1,500,000 new cells being born. You understand that? You must realize also that if you think a thought in your mind, and because you quit thinking about it, doesn't necessarily mean that that thought has ceased to exist. It hasn't. Because that thought has been reflected back into your psychic body and has changed and made a little shaping. It's created its little intelligence, its little relationship into the psychic structure of the body itself, the psychic self. Therefore, you can see that by the end of the day, you put a lot of things in there that you didn't have in the morning. Is that right? And as you go along, due to certain orders and laws of frequency, harmonic relationships, you are by the same token discharging certain waveforms that have been placed there previously, just as you tear down cells in your body through moving your arms and wiggling your legs and your tongue and so on. You're tearing down cells, aren't you? So it does the same thing in your psychic body, except it's being done with energy instead of with tissue.
Oh, he is a spiritual being. And so you see, when man begins to live as he truly is, a spiritual being, then we brothers can come to him and can come to you and express in these beautiful, inspired ways. And I must say that anything in a positive, constructive, or beautiful artistic way that has ever come to the earth plane at any time has been done in this way, through the inspiration of the higher spiritual worlds. Now, whether the individual knows it or not is not important, and he is not always aware. Many of the very elegant and difficult musical renditions, and, well, we could say any other literature, poetry, sculpting, these were all inspired by the inner and the higher. Remembering, of course, that man does carry with him these positive remembrances and expressions that he has related in the past. Life would be meaningless and purposeless if man did not retain these as well as his negations. But we do not necessarily have to go into these positive parts, for they take care of themselves. It is only the negative expressions that man need to become aware of.
The average Earthman seems very far removed from these inspired expressions that you speak of. How long does it take to reach that point in evolution where one can become aware of these higher words?
Oh, Jeff, when you say how long, this is a very, a very unanswerable question, because it is entirely dependent upon the individual. You yourself, you see, when you were in Canada and you were studying, you were supposed to be studying, you made little progress with yourself. You didn't get very far. And how long did that go on? A couple of years, 3 years?
3 or 4 years.
Yes, and you didn't make much progress. You see, you came to California, you came to San Diego here in our center, and you became more serious about your study. You expressed more art than you have ever before, I'm sure.
That's definitely true.
And that's making the effort, you see. And what have you done? You have really progressed yourself. And I can sincerely say, Jeff, that you have progressed yourself many thousands of years into the future compared to the progress you were making before you came. Now, I don't mean, and I must not have it believed, that one must come here to make his progress. But it's just that one does give more effort when he's here. Now, there are other students that live at a distance who are making a very excellent headway with themselves. But it is the most important thing in their life. You see, with you before, it was just a little side issue. You studied or went to one of the groups just as a little hobby, and it wasn't your most important goal and purpose and mission in life. Now you know that it's the only way to travel, don't you?
Absolutely. I also got more deflations here in 1 week than I did in all the rest of my evolution, I tell you.
Well, deflations are very helpful. Deflations are really very, very good for one, because you see, man has built up through these eons of past. He's really built up a tremendous ego, an extruded ego.
I can prove that.
Yes, Ben has been a very, you see, he has struggled for power in the past, and especially this group here have been very active in a power struggle, because the whole group has, as is true with any group or any family, you see, they come together repeatedly, life after life, and if it's a negative endeavor, they will endeavor and strive in a negative way repeatedly, continuously striving to prove this to the other fellow, striving to prove to man how great he is. And you see, this is another great difference. When the individual truly begins to understand something of life, here and hereafter, he ceases to feel he must prove anything to anybody. And only when he begins to lessen this drive, this ego drive, and this effort to prove, or to dominate, or to overcome his fellow man, or to gain a greater car, for instance, or a bigger house, or whatever it is, only then can he truly begin to make headway and progress. When he begins to put value, place value in the proper channels, in the proper direction. When we start to live the spiritual life, you see. And by spiritual life, I do not mean on your knees in prayer. There's really nothing spiritual about religion or prayer. As long as the individual believes that he must beseech some God to do this or that for him, he misses the point.
Many people.
Greetings, friends. I am Uriel. There will be 33 starships come from various planets and descend to Earth and land on Unarius property that I have purchased 15 years ago for this very purpose. These ships, starships, will land, and they have been built to all interconnect. Like this model you see behind me, they have been built so that they all interconnect. And when they are descended, they will land, and it will be a permanent structure on the Earth world, where people can come from all over the world to study and learn. And each ship will be loaded with 1,000 passengers from each world. So that means we'll have 33,000 what you call aliens. To me, they're my beloved advanced brothers and sisters from these other worlds. I am very familiar with all the people who will come. I have been working with them for many, many thousands of years. These ships have been built of crystal and gold and will last eternally. They will not deteriorate, nor will age ruin them in any way. Each ship will teach a different topic, a different part of evolution, like medics, education, music, arts, all the various things that man needs to learn. It will be a total and complete education. People will come from Europe and all over the world to study and learn this new way of life.
We started amongst the stars, if you want to look at it that way. Children of these higher, more intelligent beings.
Greetings, fellow countrymen. Greetings, one and all. So happy to see you here at the gate. You appear to be awaiting my arrival, and I did not tell you I would be here. But I'm sure that you know, as frequent as Osiris and I do come this way, that you would expect us. And I have a few moments before I need await the meeting of Osiris, who is teaching a group of young boys this morning on the same principles that we will speak to you. And we would talk to you this day of love. We would speak to you of love. Love not as you know it, as this moment, but we would speak to you of that infinite oscillation, the source of life, the source of all living things, which is love. Love is that oscillating energy that holds the worlds together or apart, whichever way you wish to look at it. Love is that very beautiful frequency that causes the trees to grow, the flowers to bloom. Love is that which causes man to live, for love is life. Life is love, true life. We speak of the great radiating frequency, the great force fields that come from the infinite, set in motion by the higher minds on the high frequency worlds, the super celestial worlds of the most infinite dimensions. This is set in motion and created and regenerated by these higher minds. This is the life force, the very life force of man. When you people can begin to become aware of what we speak, truly love, you can tune into this energy, you can tune into these higher minds and receive this love, as now we are expending it forth to you all. And I simply say, let the power of love flow. Let the love of life flow unto all mankind and you, each one. When we are simply aware of this essence, this pure essence of the most high frequency of love, the very thoughts, the very minds, the very souls of the infinite brothers, the higher minds, then we are in tune with this vast, creative, infinite source, this force of life. For life is love, pure, infinite, intelligent love. This has nothing to do with your emotional conflicts with each other. And we can say to you that if you would start to be aware of this wonderful essence that is there and available and presented for each and every one of you, if you would be aware of this vast infinite love that permeates all growing things, man, trees, animals, flowers, grass, every living growing thing is permeated and motivated and regenerated by this infinite love of the brothers. And by the brothers I mean the great spiritual minds and beings who motivate the cosmos, who maintain the force fields and the planets and the all things that move and live and have their being in this and all other worlds. We must be aware that each and every soul has a spark of infinity within him. You are a part of infinity. Each and every soul, you are a part of the great cosmic force called, if you wish to call it God, we prefer to call it infinite intelligence. But realizing that you each are a part of this infinite intelligence. But you must develop this intelligence. You must make it your own. In your times of need, when you are totally involved in emotional conflicts with your fellow brother man, you are extending out a great hatred or fear or resentment to your fellow man, and he bounces it back to you regenerated. If you would just stop for the moment and think. Isis said love. And what is this thing called love? If you would only stop for that one moment and be open and aware and be conscious of this infinite regenerative love. For love heals all things. There is no greater power, fellow countrymen. There is no greater power in the world or any other world than infinite love. And I have proven that to myself, that Isis and Osiris, we have proven and reproven this to ourselves so many, many times. There is no greater power, for love is the regenerative power of infinite creation. If you could realize but that one concept, dear souls, you would be on your way to a progressive evolution. And so as I tune in to this great world of love, this great world of the infinite, and we say to our spiritual brothers of light, let the power flow. And we sense and we feel this great golden, beautiful, marvelous, wonderful, quickening energy that comes into us and that brings our life into us again and that circulates through our being. And this is the love, dear ones, that you must learn to live with, to become aware of. This word and phrase of infinite love is not set aside for some few special beings. We brothers of the infinite and the inner worlds are constantly regenerating and projecting it for each and every one. No one excepted. No one excepted. And it saddens us greatly when we see one who will refuse this love. and will instead build for himself a gigantic ego structure where he thinks he is some great god, and he seals himself off into some ivory tower and say, I have it made, I am the greatest. And he thinks that he is the ruler. How many, many times in the past, dear fellow men, have each and every one of you believed these false concepts? Why? Because you have not learned the one principle of love and putting it in action. Love in action simply means compassionate understanding for your fellow men. And when you have compassionate understanding, it does not mean that you pamper their soul or dawdle in sympathy. No. It simply means that you look to the soul in understanding his problems. If the soul comes to you with emotion and reaction, look within, contact that force, that great life force, the God or Christ self within, that knows the answer here. And when you contact this force within you, this great regenerative, infinite God force, and then you can look to your fellow man and say, I see his problem. He is in need of understanding. And when I understand his problem, he can be helped through my understanding. You see? And this is the way it does. It works every time. When one will be compassionate in understanding this love force within, this compassionate understanding of no condemnation, this spiritual love force, this radiating, regenerative force field from the very highest dimensions is regenerated eternally and heals all within reach of this frequency. Oh, dear ones, it is the most beautiful way of life to live. You need not go onto your knees, sink to your knees in prayer. You need not beg to some God to forgive you, for you must forgive yourself for whatever it is you feel you have done that is erroneous or sinful. For there is no sin except to man himself. And so we brothers say to you, learn to live ye in peace, and learn to love ye one another. If you do not love thy neighbor or thy brother, then how can you love thyself? And by loving thyself, we mean the understanding of the regenerative principles of infinite intelligence and the infinite nature of life itself. So knowing these things and putting them in action in your day-by-day life, there's no reason why that you do not climb upon a regenerative way of expression, and that tomorrow will find you in a far better and happier, more peace-filled and joyous way than you are this day, and that the day after you will be even more peace-filled and love-filled. And when you start to see that beautiful and infinite love within the heart and mind and soul of thy brother, you will indeed feel it more within thyself. And so we say to you, be aware, be receptive of these infinite powers that come to us, for they are ever present. And once again, we open the channel of our consciousness and extend this life, love force unto all mankind and unto you. And so I say to you, learn to love ye one another as I have loved ye all. And now I feel that it's time that Osiris has broken up his meeting with the young boys, and I must go to meet him. So, love to you, dear ones, love. Now, outlining just a few of the basics of reincarnation or metempsychosis. After the individual sets up on the inner world what it is he will do here, and he selects his family that he wishes to come into, and of course this is always a family where he has had associations, and usually negative associations, because this is the importance to work out his negations of the past. The positive deeds and acts and expressions take care of themselves. We need not be concerned about that. And so we select the family with whom we have karma, and especially these days of the Armageddon time. These karmic deeds and associations can be very, very drastic and severe. And so then we are brought into, man is brought into this family where he has negative ties. And although when this individual grows up and he will meet one of possibly the opposite sex, and the association seems to be a beautiful, harmonious one, and the association is carried on for some time, then the very first thing, the great friction and opposition and frustration and resentment begin to appear. And then they wonder why. And the reason is always within the past. Man is always and ever reliving his past, and just as soon as this cycle will come in, these past negations will come in and give both parties, and sometimes it's several parties, to take part. And in such family associations, how wonderful it is when people are aware of what we are doing, what life is all about. How wonderful it is that they can thrash these things out consciously, mentally, rather than physically, the old way, physically, with hammer and tongs. The very wonderful part about being Lemurian, you can work out these past negations in one fraction, one small fraction of the time that the average Earth people who know not these principles. You see, the average Earth person is living and reliving, and very often life after life after life, trying to free himself of the same tie of karmic debt, and he knows not what he is doing. And what does he do? He only regenerates. The same situations are again reenacted, and he again regenerates these negations, these past deeds. And the first thing you know, these ties and these blocks, they become so enmeshed and so tightened, so laced and interlaced, that there's little hope for him to ever break them loose. And then what happens? Very often he ends up in mental institutions, and what happens there? The unlearned doctor and psychiatrist, they know no difference but to give him shots and injections and even lobotomies, and the poor soul ends up 100 or 1,000 times worse off than he was in the beginning. So dear ones, going around with these thoughts and these awarenesses, this should give you a greater appreciation and awareness of your knowledge and your concept of evolution, of reincarnation, and of the wonderful, wonderful thing that it is to be a Lemurian. And what does it mean to be a Lemurian? It means that you have contact and access with the great powers that be, with the love and the light and the inspiration the outpouring love of we, the brothers of the infinite. Be glad you are engineering. Don't let these negations that you're working out get you down. Realize this is just one mote in the eye of the infinite. One moment in the infinity of time. Truly it matters but little what happens to the physical so long as we keep our mentality. And I know what many of you are thinking right now, that you don't even have your mentality when we truly have these severe working outs. And I know. I know, believe me, I know. When we have really a severe working out, in the past, severe negative condition comes in where it has been a great negative block with the past and a chronic action on the part of the individual. And you become really sick, physically sick with it. Then also that your mentality becomes very, very confused and blocked off. In these times we must bear the watchword patience. Patience. Persistence. A positive. And progressive evolution ever. Ever. There is that forward step, there is that progressive evolution, ever in our consciousness, ever in our future.
It would seem that beginning in the days of the caveman Zan, we were touched by the ability to look up into the sky and dream.
Has this burning sun come to destroy me? Or have it come to...
Yes, to you and your people, we bring a new and wondrous future. Our leader is of the highest light our mind can conceive. She is present on board this ship.
I am Archangel Uriel. I am light. I am wisdom. I am your future.
Looking to the future, they believe that one day there will be a major, indisputable spacecraft arrival. On the edge of the desert, they have purchased a 67-acre landing site.
We chose this particular area and site because this is all virgin country. It has never been lived in. So it's minus all the negative vibrations and debris. Now, in 2001, 33 interplanetary spaceships carrying 1,000 passengers each from these 33 planets will land on this acreage. When they come, they will be all interlocked, just like the picture. And there they are going to remain here to help you people to learn how to live a more selfless, a more loving, a more peace-filled life. And it will be the day of days for Earth.
Borne aloft in a bejeweled spacecraft, Uriel will preside over a new age of cosmic wisdom and harmony, a far cry from the 1950s. The shadow of nuclear destruction hovered over the land. The Unarians have a gift for visualizing their beliefs, be they of what happened in the past or what will happen in the future. This mannequin is symbolic of an intergalactic federation of 33 planets, each harboring an advanced civilization. Their prime transport, flying saucers.
These ships have been built of crystal and gold and will last eternally. Let the power flow.